thoughts dictate feeling. Feeling dictates action, and action dictates results, and they are tied together. So no matter how much I tell myself I'm going to do this, and I might be able to, through sheer willpower, do it for a short amount of time. But it's like I've got a big blown up beach ball, huge one, and I'm going to hold that underwater. I am not going to think that thought. I'm going to hold it underwater. I can do it for an amount of time, but eventually I'm going to get tired or distracted. It's going to pop right back up.
Hey, everybody, I'm Lori Schulweis.
And I'm Jen Giammo.
And welcome to another episode of Everybody Talks, the podcast where we explore the wide world of wellness. Sometimes we talk to experts, sometimes we just talk to each other, but we're always talking to you.
And if you want to watch this episode, you can go to our YouTube channel at Everybody Talks Podcast, where every week we discuss topics from nutrition and exercise to mindfulness and self-care. And today we are talking to an international speaker, best-selling author, CEO, empowerment specialist, and founder of the Brave Thinking Institute, which provides transformational coaching for creating a life you love. In her 4 decades-long career, she's spoken at the United Nations 3 times, facilitated 3 week-long meetings with the Dalai Lama, and met with Nelson Mandela in Cape Town, South Africa to address significant world issues.
In her new book, Brave Thinking, The Art and Science of Creating a Life You Love, she candidly shares her personal story of starting her own brave thinking journey, which began as a pregnant teenager who was then diagnosed with fatal kidney disease shortly after becoming a new mom. And we're going to hear all about that. So please welcome to Everybody Talks, Mary Morrissey. Mary, welcome to Everybody Talks. Happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much.
I guess let's start off. That's a good jumping off point to tell us about your story and how you got into kind of this transformational space.
Yeah, I grew up in Beaverton, Oregon, a small suburb of Portland. Had a wonderful family life. Mom and dad loved each other their whole 63 years. My sister, 8 years older. She was gone, of course, on to her next adult journey by the time I was 10. But I had a high school experience like most young girls dream about. My junior year in high school, I'm class vice president. I'm on the drill team. I have a lead in the junior play, homecoming princess. And on spring break, my high school boyfriend came home on spring break. He was a year older, had gone to college, came home, and I got pregnant. So May 1 of my junior year in high school, I'm telling my mom and dad that I am now pregnant. My mom wept for me as if I had died. This is 1966. We had a hasty 10-person wedding. And about 2 weeks later, the principal of the high school called me to his office. In those days, they were intercoms. You heard your voice over. And when I got to his office, he closed the door, sat down and said, "Are these rumors I'm hearing about you true?" And I said, "Well, if the rumors are that I'm pregnant and married in that order, then yes, they're true." And he just put his head in his hands. He says, "Mary, you have great academics, you have terrific honors, but you will not be allowed to return here for your senior year. It would be it would be totally inappropriate for a pregnant girl to get mixed in with the normal girls.
Oh my God.
But if you want a high school diploma, there's a place for people like you." It happened to be across the river. We lived on the west side, the nicer side. It was in a part of Portland I hadn't been allowed to drive in after dark, and it was an after dark that took a regular high school, Washington high school that turned into Washington Evening High School for the pregnant girls and the delinquent boys. And I did want a high school diploma because my dream of being a teacher, I knew this was a detour, but I didn't see it as a dead end, getting pregnant, having a baby, but I'm going to still do this in my life. I didn't know how I would do it, but I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I drove across the river, parked my car, and walking up the steps. This is, I'd had one experience. So I think for yourself, think about where you were at the beginning of your senior year or its equivalent for our international guests when you started high school. So I'm walking up the steps and I'm thinking, all right, every girl here either has a baby or is pregnant like me, and everybody else is a delinquent. This is my new student body. And so I went in, registered. My son was born in December. I graduated from Washington Evening High School in May. And in July, I found myself in a Portland hospital in intensive care, having been diagnosed with fatal kidney disease. One kidney was totally destroyed with nephritis, which is kidney disease. The other had 50% destruction and active nephritis. Now, we don't have transplants or dialysis at this point, and so this is a death sentence according to the medical science. And I had been raised that the men and women in the white coats, particularly men in those days, they were the highest authority. And so I was preparing, and I was just so bereft and sad. And I'm never going to see my little boy even take his first steps. He's 7 months old at this point. I may not even see that, let alone, his grade school, high school, getting married, all of those things. I'll never see that. And finally, they came and they said, well, if we can get your blood toxin level reduced enough in the surgery, we think that pretty much will assure you 6 months. So they kept working to do that. Finally, they did, and they said, we're going to do the surgery tomorrow. That night, and all that way along, I'd been thinking that I was being punished. The God of my upbringing was not a friendly place to go when you felt like you had really screwed up. And surely I had screwed up. I got kicked out of my high school. I'm being sent to school with delinquents. I know the group I'm in now. I'm a delinquent. And so I'm a bad girl. And so I just felt that I was being punished and didn't even deserve to live. That was the mindset that I had at the time. And finally, the night before the surgery, a woman walked in my room, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It seemed late at the time. And she said, I come and I'm a volunteer chaplain. I come every night for a little while, and I offer prayer for the people that are having the most serious surgeries in the morning. Your name is at the top of my list. Would you like me to pray with you? And I was scared. And so I said, okay. She didn't do anything that looked or sounded like prayer. She pulled her chair next to my bed and she said, would you be willing to tell me what's been going on in your life the last year or two? So I told her my story. At the end of which she looked at me compassionately and she said, Mary, everything's created twice. I had no idea what she was talking about. And then she smiled and she said, you actually know this. Everybody knows it. Almost nobody knows the power of knowing this. And then she said, the bed you're laying on, the nightgown you're wearing, the sheets, the ceiling, the floor, all the machinery you're hooked up to. First, it had to be a thought before it could be a thing. And now that you're sharing your story with me, I hear how much you love your little boy. But I also hear how much you've been hating yourself. You feel like you shamed your school, you shamed your family, you shamed yourself. And if you're considering how everything is created twice, could you consider the possibility that all that toxic thinking could have something to do as a correlation to the toxicity that's moving through your body and threatening your very life?
Right.
Now, no, but we did not have mind-body clinics at Harvard and all the wonderful teaching institutions. This is 1967. And so nobody I knew thought this way or spoke this way. But I could tell she had depth of caring. And so she was saying to me, she said, if you think about it, there are infinite possibilities in the universe. So one possibility is you do die with this disease. And a lot of people will believe in that possibility. But there's another possibility. And that possibility is that you could live a life you would love. What if you could live? What would you do with that life? And I said, I knew immediately I would raise my little boy, number one, and I would become a teacher. And she said, all right, so would you be willing to do an experiment with me? And so she did. We didn't even use the word visualization in those days, but imagination, she might have said. I don't know what she said. But she said, here's what I want you to do. She said, after the surgery, you're going to feel pain. The first few days, you're going to be focused on just dealing with the pain of a major surgery like that. And then she said, as that pain starts to subside, your mind is going to want to walk down all the well-worn paths of thinking that you've been plowing for the last over a year. So what I want you to do is the moment you notice we're going to do a visual she may have called it a visualization. We would today. She said we're going to do a visualization, imagination, and we're going to go in and imagine that we're scooping up all the toxicity that's in your body and placing it in the one kidney that's going to get removed. So when it's gone, it's out of you. So you're going to have some pain afterwards. Then, as your body starts to recover from the pain of the surgery, your mind is going to want to pick up all those self loathing thoughts. The moment you notice, if you notice a thought that is self deprecative, self loathing, immediately say, no, that left with the kidney. And then immediately imagine that you're walking up to a school. You have a little boy's hand in yours. Feel the warmth of his hand. He's 5 years old. You're walking this little boy up the steps to his kindergarten class, and it's your little boy. And he's happy, and you give him a hug, and he goes into class. And you hear the click, click, click of your shoes going down the hall, turn the corner, and there's your classroom, and you're a teacher. Then immediately fast forward, and you're in a big auditorium, and there's all these caps and gowns, and it's your son, and he's at high school graduation, and your teaching career is growing. Then fast forward, and you're in a wedding. You're in the front row of this wedding, and your son is getting married, and you're the mother of the groom, and feel how happy you are for him. And as that's occurring, your teaching career is thriving.
That's
Wow,
amazing.
incredible.
Now, I mean,
So all of that occurred. All of that
Wow.
and
occurred.
it all happened.
It was I was an unconscious, we would call it unconscious competency today, where I did what she told me to do, but I didn't know the power of it.
Right.
I wasn't thinking, now if I think this way, I
Yeah.
didn't know the science of it. I
You
just
just
knew
did it.
the practicality, or I did it anyway. And about 6 months later, so a couple of weeks later, my numbers have started to stabilize, and the progression of that went on. By 6 months, I'm in a conference room at the hospital. The surgeon, the GP, the specialist, they're all just scratching their heads saying, we have no science for what's occurred with you. And the surgeon said to me, look, I saw your left kidney. That kidney was pockholed and it was shriveled. Why that kidney is now functioning as a whole perfect kidney, I don't know if it'll last. I don't know how long it'll last. But whatever you've been doing, keep doing it. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was leaning into life. And I remember one of the things she said to me that I think is important for anyone facing a critical moment with their body's health. She said, wanting to get well is not a big enough dream. Health is for what you're going to do in your life. You want health so you can create something, so that you can travel, so that you can raise your children, so that you can have love in your life, create a business. That health isn't a big enough dream. Health is for your real dream. So my real dream in that moment was raising my son and creating a career of teaching, and that's what I've done.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
That's an incredible
I mean,
story.
you're 17, 18 years old
Right.
at this
I
point.
was 18 at this point,
18.
and I was really grateful to get well, but I didn't get curious about really what happened there for about 4 years. I was getting my undergraduate. 3 years later, I'm getting my
Yeah.
undergraduate work. Series of things occurred in October of 1971, and I began to realize I had lived in a world where I felt like life was happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that I was a co-participant in creating the results that I created. They weren't just happening to me. I wasn't a victim of life. I was a co-creator. And that there was an art and science to how results occur. And I got very interested in that, have studied the world's religions, got a master's degree in psychology, counseling psychology, did a 2-year seminary, studied the world's leaders. It's how I met Nelson and His Holiness, and did all this work, UN work with Rosa Parks and others in leadership, that where people created something that the circumstances they were in said couldn't be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because every one of us can create results that our current circumstances dictate you can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're actually more than any circumstance, situation, or condition.
So that's, yeah.
The thing that's fascinating to me, I mean, all of it is fascinating, and you know how grateful you must feel that you had this person come into your life and taught you how to do this visualization. But Also, that was something, like you mentioned, in the 60s and 70s,
Not even.
people were not embracing this. I mean, I feel like I've only started to just understand this in the last like 10
Exactly.
years,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
personal development industry, then a number of us,
Yeah.
Yeah.
helped build,
Totally.
wasn't there then. Yeah.
I mean, that is really a groundbreaking, like you're sort of on the ground floor
Yeah.
of personal growth
Right.
and
Right.
these techniques and how powerful they can be.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. So you started to embrace this, obviously, and then when was it that you actually started to go out and teach this to other people?
This was in 1967. So I got my undergraduate, my graduate, my seminary. I didn't begin to teach it until 1980. So it was a good, strong amount of study. There's a lot of, I wanted the depth of really what was going on. I, by then, you know, had met my first real mentor, Jack Bolland. I had started, just barely started a little work, and it hadn't gone anywhere. It was just very small, 40, 50 people coming to it. And, I was a pretty good speaker at that time. I hadn't become a very strong speaker yet, but, um, public speaking, all of those kinds of things we learn. Uh, but I met him. I had heard a man's cassette tapes, and he was successful in doing what I wanted to do. So I flew to Chicago to go to a seminar he was helped leading. And I begged him to have breakfast with me after I stood in line to talk to him. And he's like, "We're leaving this conference 3 days. I'm not able to do that, but I'll meet you for coffee if you're there at 7 a.m." So I sat down and I in the booth and I said, uh, he says, "How can I help you?" I said, "I want to do what you're doing my way, but I want to do what you're doing." He says, "I can help you with that, but it's going to cost you." And immediately my body went back and I said, "How much?" And he goes, "Oh, that's your problem. You think you think how much something costs has something to do with what you want." And my eyes, I felt like he was talking a foreign language. I said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually do think that. Of course,
Yeah.
I have to know
Everyone
how much
has
it
to think
is
that.
Yeah.
before I know
Yes.
if I can have it." He
Before
says,
you
"I'm
embark.
telling you, that's your problem." He said, "Decide for what you want, and you start to move energy until you really decide for what you want. You're never going to have it because you're going to want to rearrange all the things in circumstances that can, yes, you can do that, but it can take forever. Would you love this?" So ultimately, I put the deposit down. It was $19,000 to work with him for a year as a
No kidding.
mentor. Now
Wow.
that's one volume today. If you go back in the year that I
Yes.
was meeting with him, that was
Yeah.
over $50,000 to work with
Sure.
him
Yeah.
for a year.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. I've got by now 4 kids.
Yeah.
I'm starting this work. I'm doing therapy most of the days to be able to
Right.
earn the money to help support the work I really want to be doing. And he says, "I've got 2 other men. I'm going to have 2 men I picked that I'm going to mentor this year. I've been thinking there has to be a woman that really wants to come on the stage and do this thing. So if you come next weekend to Detroit, I can take you in for a year." I went. We went in the room. I met a man named Wayne, a man named Les, Miss Mary. And so then he came in, the mentor, and he introduced Les Brown, Mary Morrissey, and Wayne Dyer together.
I knew the Wayne was going to be Wayne Dyer
Oh
when I was
my
that.
God.
Wow.
Oh
And
my
that was
God.
so the 3 of
Wow.
us have been lifelong friends and colleagues all these years. Of course, Wayne passed away a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And, one thing important to know is when Wayne passed away on a Saturday night, his calendar book was booked for 3 years in the future, totally booked.
Wow.
He loved what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for all of us to know, what's in our calendar, we want it to be life-giving, but none of us know how much time we have. So it's so important to have in your mind what really matters to you and then understand the science of how you transform a vision into your results because it works. It's like when Thomas Edison, if you go to the Smithsonian in Washington D.C., you'll see his actual leather-bound journal that he wrote very young in life. "I shall discover and deliver for the world a system of illumination that completely replaces our current requirement on oil lamp illumination." Very clear
Wow.
vision.
Yes.
And he has no idea how to do it. And that's an important thing with your vision for what matters to you in life. Don't base your vision on what you know how to accomplish. base your vision on what you would love. I would, and so he formed it as an I am statement. I am going to develop a system of illumination that completely replaces that kind of, we'd had 10,000 years of requirement almost
Right.
on oil lamp illumination.
Right.
And he discovered there was a code. And so every building in the entire planet that has electricity flowing through it, that building had to be built to code because the flow of electrons requires it.
Right.
Plugged into a grid or a satellite or wherever it comes from, it has, this is the system by which it flows. It's the same thing with how you take ideas, which is energy, and transform it into form, which is results in any area of life. And because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, however you described yourself, you are co-creative with this energy. You don't get to not create results. Just keep breathing. And a year from now, you are going to have results in your life. And they're going to show up in 4 areas. One is in your health. You're going to have health results. You're going to have relationship results, whether they're ones you love and they have depth and love and support, or whether not. What you're doing with your time and talent, your vocation, doesn't mean you're earning income. It's for any person, any age. You're going to do something with your time and talent. Is it meaningful? Is it alive making? Or is it you're just checking your soul at the door of the work you go to every day and trading time for money?
Right.
And the other is your, what I call your freedom quadrant, your ability to go where you want to go, do what you want to do, the amount of freedom you enjoy or don't enjoy in time freedom and money freedom. Those are all results that you currently look at your life and what would you love more of or less of and shape a vision out of that. And then there's a science for how you apply that. And it's a fairly simple system. But it's not something we teach in school. In fact, my first vision of being a teacher was classical classroom teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for 5 years, and I realized I don't want to teach kids what to think. I want to teach them how to think.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I developed my first seminar on spring break of a year. And they had a very liberal and wonderful principal who allowed me to send out flyers to the parents and say, I'm doing a 4-day seminar over spring break, communication skills, this kind of thing. And did my first seminar in within 2 weeks, I had parents calling me, what do you got for adults? I mean, it's just been so great when Jimmy came home, when Sarah came home. So that was the beginning. And oh my gosh, fast forward 40 plus years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny. Before we started recording, you asked us about our podcast. What do we hope to make it
What are
do
we-
with it? What
yeah.
is our goal? And now all of those questions seem very clear to me. What you were doing.
Do you have any answers?
To us. I don't, but it makes me think harder about what our answers should be to,
Well, for yourself. Yeah.
For yourself.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think about, success starts in the mind, and it's all about your mindset around these different ideas and your idea of success and what that looks like. And so I guess 2 questions. One is, would you take us through this visualization type of exercise so we can kind of get a clearer picture of what that looks like? And also, when you talk about, you mentioned Thomas Edison and this idea that he wrote down. What would you? So he had this vision in his mind, right? He knew, okay, this is what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it or how I'm going to get there. But what would you say to people who don't even know what that is for themselves? They don't even know what they know what they want to feel and what that end result they want, but they don't know.
Yeah.
How to get there.
I understand how many of us don't know because we're not trained to consider these things. We're so busy dealing with what's coming at us that the support to begin to develop paying attention to what's coming from us. And that's a process. So in the beginning, and I've done thousands of what I call dream builder events. First step, and I'd say 50% of my audience, whether it's 100 people or 10,000 people, 50% of us don't have any idea about what our vision is because we're, like I said, so busy dealing with things that are happening. First question is, what do I know for sure? If I keep breathing another year, or let's put myself 3 years out, from now. So, this podcast is today. Imagine as you're listening to it, it's 3 years from now in your life.
Yeah.
You have results. You don't get to not have results because you're human.
Yeah.
You're having this experience of life. The version of life you have a lot of influence on, but that you have versions of life you don't, that you're going to have results. So what would you love in your health? What you know, you start with what you know for sure, and you're asking a different question. Most of us ask the question, what do I think I can have? What do my conditions tell me I can have? What does my previous success dictate I can have? So we refuse to ask questions that way. We move into a different frequency of question, which is, what would I love? And you're going to hear different things from yourself. What would I love in my health? What do I know for sure I want in my health? And you just write down a few things. And then you turn to your relationship quadrant. So it's 3 years from now. And if you've been the person who has been single but longed for that love of your life, so if now I have the love of my life, and what's our life like? And you write down a few things of what that life is like. So you have some pictures. The mind thinks in pictures. Then you do the same thing for your vocation. And then you do, and if I had the ability to make my calendar look exactly the way I would love it, what travel would be on that calendar, or what retreats, or whatever, how much time for gardening, or the things that really matter to you. You see that on your calendar. And the amount of money that is what you would love to have, so you can give and have what you would really love. So you begin to build pictures. So you think about, if I say to you, your front door where you live, the kitchen sink where you live, the bed you sleep in most often, you didn't see the word DOOR. You saw a picture of a door. You saw a picture of a sink, a picture of a bed.
Right.
The mind thinks in pictures.
Right.
So rather than just writing the words, you have to have a picture of yourself standing 3 years from now. I love my life, my health, my relationships, vocation, time and money, freedom. And there's a part of you all along that is going to niggle at you saying, well, you can't have that. I mean, who do you think you? Let it talk. Just ignore it. Because when we think about our own nature, we didn't create ourselves. None of us did. We can't even make our heart beat one time. There's this amazing, call it spiritual, call it energy, call it whatever you want to call it, life pouring into and through each one of us each day, giving us a day of itself, life. And we've been given the power to shape that into problems and difficulties and resentments and all of the things that are like taking, or we can equally turn our attention to build things that are life-giving. It's in us to do that. But so that's our spiritual side. We have complete tap into anything possible. In our human side, so we have a spiritual side of our nature, and we have a human side of our nature. Our human side of our nature operates through duality, meaning we understand that we're alive because the idea of dead is in our mind. I know I feel good today because I know what it feels like not to feel good. So by contrast, we have the experience of being in a human experience, which means a part of your human nature will really want your dream. And a part of your human nature is trying to pull you back to the familiar and argue with you why you can't. You want to know that about yourself, that you have both sides to your nature, so you can feed the part of you that wants to go forward. And you can begin to fast on the part of you that's arguing.
Yeah.
So I really encourage my clients who have never done much of this before, just baby steps. Just take a baby step today.
Yeah.
What can I do in 5 minutes today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
baby steps
Yeah.
really will take you all the way up Mount Everest, but you got to keep taking them.
You have to keep
Yeah.
taking them. And I think you're right. I think, you base so much on like your past and what you've experienced
Yes.
before that you think is predicting your future.
Yes.
Joe Dispenza talks about the gosh, I forget the term he uses, but your predictable future and your something past, and how you have to let go of all of that go.
Right.
And just what you're saying. And it's hard
it's
though.
a challenge
It's hard.
sometimes.
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
And so you don't try to get it all done at once, or just because it's still kind of coming back on you, you feel like, oh, I'm failing. It's just progress, not perfection in this.
Yeah.
Just just progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that 5 minutes or less that you said, you have, I know you have this sort of process for, blueprinting and bridging and building. And what is that? Talk to us about that process a little bit.
Well, it starts really with what I call groundbreaking, where you have, so I'm going to give you 5, better than 3. The 3
Okay.
are the 3 main ones.
Mhm.
But prior to that, you start, one of the key transformation tools that every one of us has is an ability that most people never get trained in. And that is our ability to notice what we're noticing. So for a moment, notice if your feet are bare or if you have shoes on your feet. Notice that. Feel your feet. Notice your ankles, your calves, your knees, your thighs, your bottom, your belly, your torso, across your shoulders, down all the way to the tippy tip of your fingers, up the front and back of your face, your neck, tip of your chin, tip of your nose, your cheeks, center of your forehead, the top of your head. Notice your body. Notice your body. Notice the thoughts you've been having while we've been doing this podcast or you're listening to the podcast. You might have thought some of it interesting or boring or whatever you thought. Doesn't matter. Don't judge your thoughts. Just notice the thoughts you've been having. And then notice what you've been feeling. Whether you're inspired or bored, doesn't matter. Just notice what you've been feeling. Then ask yourself a question. Who is it in me that can notice my body, but is more than my body? I have a hand, but if I lose a hand, I don't say I lost me. I say I lost my hand, part of my equipment. Who is that? Who is it in me that can notice my thoughts, but has complete power to change a thought or say, this thought's really important, or this thought, I'm going to think about that now. I'll think about that later. Who is that? And who is it in me that can notice my feeling and decide to get really, wired up about that or say, you know what, I'm going to let that go. Who is that who has all that authority? That's your real self. That's your real self. And you can only come from that when you bring in what many of us, including Joe Dispenza, call metacognition, is the ability to notice what you're noticing. And that's your best friend in transforming your results. Because until you can notice what you're noticing, you don't even know your part in creating. So if I'm on the worry channel all the time, that frequency is not a match to my vision. You think about just your television alone, let alone all the technology we use. We got together today for this podcast by getting on the same URL.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
And so
At the same time.
and so if
Yeah.
I have a remote control, but my TV I've been tuning again and again to CNN, constantly negative news, problem, difficulty, challenge. But I want discovery and I want romance and I want travel, but I'm not on their frequency. I keep seeing problems. I have to move to a different frequency and all those pictures change. All the pictures of what show up as our results have a vibratory match to what's going on inside of me. There are no accidents. There are surprises for sure, because we're not aware enough to know our part. So that's why having a vision is so important. So in 5 minutes, ask yourself, what would I love? And write down some things. And make sure, then review it and make sure what you would love has no negatives in it. Meaning, I would love to have no more pain in my shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the subconscious picks up is pain in my shoulder. I'd love to be completely free of debt. So what the subconscious picks up and vibrates is the idea of debt. So all my accounts are at zero balances and my accounts grow each month. That's what I would love. I would love flexibility and stamina and strength and vitality and vibrancy in my body. Sleep well, wake rested. You paint pictures, as we talked about pictures, on a vision, and you can do that in 5 minutes in an area. Just ask yourself, what would I love? What do I want more of and less of? Because I believe the soul gives us 2 signals all the time, if we're willing to pay attention to them, from our soul. One is longing. You're doing the dishes. I just love to take my parents on that cruise before they die. Or I would just love to have my kids. You're longing. And the other is discontent. I am so tired of struggling with how to pay the bills at the end of the month. Or I've just been carrying this hurt. And I just feel weighted down by it and I don't know how to get rid of it. But your longing and discontent are great informers about a life that really has your name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Think about life itself. In every part of itself, it's ever pressing for a greater expression of itself.
Mm.
We're in a spiral universe. Our DNA is a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that upward pull of becoming more expressive. So what life is doing in a blade of grass today, pressing through cement, seeking the light, and at the edges of the tree, growing itself into greater expanse. The only difference between the grass and tree and you and me is a piece of grass and a tree can't resist the growth of life seeking. You and I can say, not this year. Oh, wait till I get this done. So we can thwart that impulse for greater expression of life in with the
Yeah.
electronic condition called the brain
Yeah.
that we've got. And what happens is the river of life doesn't stop flowing through you; it just gets redirected.
Mm-hmm.
And so it begins to show itself in our lives as symptoms and signs of unlived lives. And we call that problems, difficulty, diseases, life seeking to get our attention. You were meant to have a more fulfilling and more free life.
Yeah. So we're more in control than we think we are.
Yeah.
Well, we have the ability to
We
be.
have the
Yes,
ability to be,
yes,
I should
yes.
say. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Wow.
So how do you identify what those sort of obstacles are between where you are now, your current situation, and what you want to have? Like, how do you know, just by asking these questions? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I created what we call Brave Thinking Institute. So common hour thinking is how we're all raised. You want to do from the time you were a little kid, I'm going to be an astronaut. And when you're 3, everybody says, isn't that cute? Of course you are. By the time you're 15 or 18, they say, well, I don't know where we're going to get the money for you to go to this school and that school. And so we're talking about conditions governing your choices.
Mm-hmm.
And we got decades of training of that.
Yeah.
Brave thinking is a different kind of thinking. So common hour thinking. One time in my an earlier work I was doing, we wanted to build a campus, 100,000 square feet. I had this beautiful vision, and I had very smart people on our board who helped develop with me a 10-year plan. And I could see how if we did this, and then we could do that, and then we could do that, and we could actually create this, and it would take 10 years. But I figured I was going to be teaching 30 more. Why not? And then I met with my mentor, and I worked with the mentor for 5 years. And he was actually dying at that time. I knew he had cancer, and I didn't know how soon it would be, which turned out to be very soon. But we had a breakfast together, and he's, tell me about I don't want to talk about my health anymore. Tell me about you. What I said, oh, Jack, I've got this vision, and I had it so in pictures in my mind. I could walk him through the whole campus and all of the different things. And I said, and so we have $40,000 in our building fund. This is a $10 million dream. So we're going to do this and raise some money and get some land and pay off the land, and then we can build the first building. And 10 years from now, we're going to walk in that facility and it will have, blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me. This is a guy who said, you think what you want has something to do with how much it costs. That was my
Yeah.
first conversation. So I'm
Right.
telling him all this, and he looks at me and he goes, why would you squeeze the infinite into a 10-year plan?
Wow.
I said, well, because we've got $40,000 and it's a $10 million dream.
Right.
Like, get real, Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, so such training in us that common hour thinking is so common, you don't even know when you're in it hardly, unless you
Yeah.
have some support usually. And he says, would you love it this year? And I said, well, of course I would love it this year. But he says, can you believe you could have it this year? And I said, Jack, I believe you believe we could have it this year. And he looked at me and like his eyes pierced into me. And he said, then believe in my belief.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I left that breakfast. We were doing a big event for 3,000 people that evening downtown at a big auditorium. And I walked out to the car. And when I I had practiced. I kept thinking, along the way of this journey, how can I pay more attention to my thoughts? Because every thought is a seed that goes to create itself. So, how do I pay more attention to that and really keep my thoughts coming from my vision instead of from conditions? And I thought it just occurred to me how many handles we touch a day, from the candle on our computer, drawers, toilet handles, sink handles, handles. And so I just thought every time I use a handle, I'm going to remind myself, how am I handling my thinking right now?
Huh.
So,
like that.
so I go to the car. I'm thinking about my conversation with Jack, and also my concern, how ill he is, and don't want to lose him, and human stuff. And then I go to the car. When I took the handle of my car door to open it up, he had said, "Now believe in my belief," and it dawned on me. Oh, I actually have a chance now to be a different woman with this. I have no idea how we could have it this year, but in the sea of all possibilities, there has to be one where we could have this facility this year.
Wow.
So that was in January. A whole series of things began to happen. Every now and then I would think, well, it could happen. Jack believed, and then Jack died in March. Went through that. Les Brown and Wayne Dyer and I conducted his memorial. Um, anyway, so then by summer, a series of things began to occur, and we did not have our first gathering, uh, thousands of people, in 10 years. Our first gathering in that facility was in 10 months.
Wow.
And
Wow.
you can't, people say, well, how did it happen? The how is always different for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the what never changes. Is that you get a vision. So the vision, your vision in terms of the art and the science of transformation. So trans means to go beyond the current conditions you've got in an area that matters to you. So our listener right now, what is the area that would most matter to you to transform your health, your relationships, vocation, your time and money quadrant? What would give you an experience of greater freedom, greater life? What would you love most? So let's get a vision of that. Write some things down. Start seeing yourself. I'm in a hospital bed in intensive care, imagining myself walking into
Yes.
a grade school, helping my little boy start kindergarten.
Yeah.
He's graduating. He's getting married. I'm
Yeah.
thinking that vibration, even though my conditions are so dire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we don't wait for the conditions to say we can think and feel that. So the art and science, the art is in the vision. You want a
Okay.
really nice art piece, something you just
Yes.
absolutely love.
Yes.
And the science is in the vibration. I want to get off CNN and get on Discovery. I want to get on romance. I want to get on the frequency of whatever most matters to me. The art is in the vision. The vision itself dictates a vibration. If I'm having this life, how do I feel? What does the person who's having this life think?
Feel like, yeah.
Right.
What is the person who's having this
Right.
life? Now, it doesn't mean you go spend a bunch of money, but you walk past a restaurant and you're no longer looking at what's the cheapest thing here if I go in. You're looking at what would I love? And you start looking through a lens of what I would love. And when you become freer in your vibration, all sorts of things begin to occur that you can never make occur, because we also have this, there's magnetism is part of it.
Yeah.
And all possibilities exist. That woman who came to my bedside knew, regardless of the science that said it couldn't happen, there had to be a possibility that it could, because she was thinking of it. And when you think of a possibility, we're in this quantum field, or all of the new sciences, every possibility that you could ever imagine is right now in superposition, meaning it can be activated. But with the more thought, the more action on it, the more density it has, the more weight, literal weight. You bend time and space with it. And this is my friend Bob Proctor used to say, when it works out, I am just never amazed. I'm just never surprised,
Yeah.
but I'm always amazed.
Always amazed.
That's how
Yeah.
it's been for me.
Did you ever go back to find this woman to say?
No, I didn't go back, but she found me. It was so. This was in July of 1967. probably, if you fast forward 17 years, it was in 1984. My work had gained enough momentum in these Sunday morning sessions because in those days, the only way I knew how to teach this was through ministry.
Prayer, yeah.
So I began a very liberal, all faiths welcome
Wow.
work in Portland, Oregon. And she'd heard about it. And I don't know how she did find out about it, but she came, walked up to me after the service and says, "Do you remember me?" I said, "You do look vaguely familiar, but I don't know." And she says, "Last time you saw me, I was sitting in a young girl's bed who had a death sentence
Wow.
over her head."
Wow.
And it was like, I wept.
Oh my
I was
God.
I would have as well.
I was so
Wow.
grateful to just thank her.
Did
Yeah.
she know? Did she know that you had survived that afterwards? Was she?
I
Must
have
have.
no
You
idea
don't
what,
know.
but well, they sent me home. And then I was never back. I don't know how those chaplains are
Yeah,
able or
sure.
can follow
Yeah.
up, but
Yeah.
it was all those 17 years later she popped up in my
That's
life.
Wow.
fascinating.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And I got to say thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, in more ways than one, changed the course of your life.
Yeah. I just want to talk for a minute about, you touched on the Brave Thinking Institute and your book as well. And you say in your book, brave thinkers know that the greatest control in their life is the power to direct the thoughts that help their dreams take form. Okay. So I get that sort of, but how do you explain that to us in practical terms? What does that look like?
Okay, so let me give you, um, in the United States, there are what we call two revolutions. There was a 1776 revolution to form a new government. About 50 years later, that's what's known as the Second Revolution, which was a revolution in thought that came out of Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, who became known as transcendentalists. This was not religious. This was invisible law, just like electricity is invisible law, all the things that the internet. There are not 8 billion internets on planet Earth. There's one internet, 8 billion interfaces, computers. So
Right.
that means you tap into the internet is the gathering of all recorded learning that humans have had for about the last 7,000 years. That's the veneer to the infinite. So we have the internet that you tap into with questions. I want to know about this. So you tap in with a question. We have the capability, have been given the capability and the gift to tap into the infinite. And the quality of the question we ask has everything to do with the kind of answers we're going to receive. So when we put ourselves in a reminding that all things are possible, no matter how many experts tell us, no matter how much our history tells us, no matter what our current circumstances tell us, that we have the ability to create a vision that is not limited by circumstance, situation, or condition, to create something that we would absolutely love as a vision. Then the process, so Henry put it in a beautiful little code, how to download what you want from the infinite. He says, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dream, well, you can't advance confidently in a direction if you don't have it. So it's up to us. Don't ask other people what your dream should be. Don't ask others if they think that's a good dream or not. Nobody can know. They're not you. Only you can know, oh, I would just love this. That's what you want in your vision with zero idea how, but it's something you would absolutely love. I would love to raise my little boy. I would love to become a teacher. So there's a power in that. So first is, what would I love? Then he says, if one advances confidently in the direction of that dream, endeavoring to live the life they've imagined.
Imagine, yeah.
So think about that. He's saying here, you're not going to get to your dream. You have to come from your dream.
Your dream.
Wow.
That's the vibration. So vision sets a vibration. I have to live on that vibration, think those thoughts, act those things long before it actually condenses into the physical form I call my results. I got to switch from the frequency of CNN and turn it on the frequency of the life I'm visioning, which means you start thinking as if you are the person. It's this is what it, and you look at your conditions and they haven't changed yet. You're still struggling with money, or you're still sleeping by yourself in bed, but you're holding this vision and you're practicing being in that vibration. And how does I can promise you, the person who's got the love of their life and they're vibrantly alive in love, they go to the grocery store, they're not going, here I am shopping again for one. Even if the love of your life were in the grocery store, they're not going to see you because you're in that energy. So you fall in love with your life. And you start in very simple ways coming from your vision. If one advances confidently in the direction of their dream, endeavoring to live the life they've imagined, meaning now,
Right.
you pass an invisible boundary. Because the boundary was never out there. It wasn't in conditions. It was in me. I wasn't a match for it. I can have everything and be anything that I'm a vibrational match to. Same way your phone gets to out of, I don't know how many people have cell phones, but Lori, when you call Jen, you're not worried you're going to get somebody else.
No,
because there's
I know
one
that I'm getting
vibration
her.
that's an exact
Right.
match
Yeah.
to Jen, and you
Yeah.
know that vibration. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing with your dream.
Wow.
So it's a practice. And why
that was
it's
my next
helpful,
question.
Yeah.
Is,
it's definitely a practice. It goes way faster with support. That's why everyone should come to your podcast
every
single
time.
every
Thank
single
you.
time, because
you.
it helps. We become more and more of who
to
we're capable of
reinforce, to
being.
reinforce
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my question. It's like, how
Yeah.
long do I have to hold this vision before it
I know.
becomes a reality?
I was going to say, I feel like it's something that you have to kind of hold in the back of your mind as you're leading, you're going through the motions of your life. You can't, sit and ponder things, as much as would like, but I think feel like it always has to be there,
So common hour thinking is thinking and living by asking for permission through circumstances, situations, and conditions. Can I do that? Well, I don't have the money. Do I have the money? Do I have the time? Do I
Right.
have,
Right.
am I attractive enough to attract? So, so we're looking to conditions. So common hour thinking is asking permission from circumstances, situations, and conditions to live a life you love. That's what most of us have been trained in. Brave thinking, it does take brave thinking to think and live from a vision regardless of circumstances, situations, and conditions. So you don't have to go spend the money. You don't have to change anything to think and live from your vision. And it even just a little bit more begins to change the vibration. You do that for 30 days, you're in a new place. And certain things are, it's amazing. We're dealing with infinite intelligence.
So, Mary, how do you differentiate between brave thinking and positive thinking? What's the difference there?
Brave thinking is a way of installing a new vibration. Positive thinking is like you pop up. Like, okay, well, I'm going to tell myself this is going to work, but there's no science in it. Brave thinking actually is the science of it, and it works.
Yeah.
So it's putting yourself. It's living as if, or it's it's sort of thinking as if, and it's like
feeling
feeling
feeling is that's where the vibration moves.
That's the hardest part. Like that, I find that when I do a lot of mindset work, and Lori knows, like, at
She's the queen
nauseum,
of
how much I
try
to
mindset.
embrace this. And where I always get stuck is the feeling.
Let me help you with that. So you're standing at the kitchen sink, and we're all doing what, chores, human chores, like we're doing the laundry, or we're folding the laundry, or we're doing the dishes. Let's imagine we're standing at the dishes. I'm thinking something. I don't get to not think something. What am I thinking? You start becoming a highly tuned noticer of what you're thinking. So that, because until we notice what we're thinking, it's as if we're in the boat of our own life going down a river, and nobody's got their hand on the helm. So we can't avoid rocks and eddies and whirls. Nobody's holding. It's only when you get your hand on the thrust of your own thinking can you direct. So let me tell you how it happens. Thoughts generate a vibration. So if I think, oh, it's never going to work for me, I'm going to feel a feeling of contraction. It's never going to work for me. It might work for them, but it doesn't work for me. Notice what you feel when you think that thought. If I think, other people have accomplished things that they had zero idea how to do. I'm a person. That makes it possible for me. So today, I'm going to imagine that it's all working just for today. Just for today. And and so you start thinking, what's one thing I can do right now where I would help somebody else feel better? And so you move into giving energy rather than getting energy. Many of us get stuck on the get frequency. So we start practicing, what can I do to, who do I know that might need an uplift right now? I'm going to make a phone call or I'm going to send a note. And you notice how you start to feel about yourself. So thoughts dictate feeling. Feeling dictates action. And action dictates results. And they are tied together. So no matter how much I tell myself I'm going to do this, and I might be able to, through sheer willpower, do it for a short amount of time. But it's like I've got a big blown up beach ball, huge one, and I'm going to hold that underwater. I am not going to think that thought. I'm going to hold it underwater. I can do it for an amount of time, but eventually I'm going to get tired or distracted, and it's going to pop right back up.
Yeah.
That's such a great analogy.
That is such a great analogy.
Such a great analogy.
It really is.
It's just like you feel like you're constantly doing that. Constantly.
I like that. I like how you tie the thought to the feeling. So it's like when you think that thought, how do you feel? That
One more clue about Henry's quote. He says, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dream. So let's talk about confidence. Because many of us say, but I'm not confident. Here's the great news. You don't place your confidence in yourself. You place your confidence in these invisible laws that are immutable. When you got up in the morning today, all of us, we put our feet on the floor. We didn't have to be confident about gravity.
Right.
know? And when there's no light in my house and I look out the window and people on my street have light, I don't think, oh, I guess I don't deserve light. I never had that, no deserving. It's like, oh, there's something wrong in the circuitry.
Right.
Right.
And if I don't have love or health or something else, there's something wrong in the circuitry. And we can get it wired out.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes all the sense. Wow. This was amazing.
I know. I feel like we just took one of your masterminds.
Yeah. And I also feel like we just scratched the surface
I agree with
all
that.
of this.
I agree with that.
Wow.
Let's remind everyone the book is Brave Thinking, The Art and Science of Creating a Life You Love with Mary Morrissey. Is there anything you want to add or?
Yeah, I just want to add that it's been a real privilege. I respect you both. I respect your work that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you gave me a chance to come on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
our privilege indeed. So thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. So I saw you get sucked away.
I got sucked right in.
You were sucked right in. I mean, you had all the questions, thank God. But I was just like, don't be sorry at all. I saw you. This was your jam.
It's my jam. I'm going to get it. Like, I'm going to get it.
And I think, and I actually know the questions you're going to ask before you ask them.
This is the closest I think I've come to really understanding it. Oh, the predictable past and the
you just remembered
I just remembered it. No.
Now you just forgot it.
And I just forgot it again. The familiar past and the predictable future.
Yeah.
So those are the things Joe Dispenza talks about and how, but she made me understand how to do it. Like, how to do it. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to do it.
I mean, I want to try to do it, but I feel like I'm the queen of distractions in my brain.
You are. You're ADD.
You know, I am ADD. Like I'm constantly like, when I was thinking about what I think about when I'm doing the dishes, I'm thinking about 37 things that I either have to do, that I want to do, that I wish I could do. Mm-hmm. I'm not, and I guess all I have to do is like really recognize that I'm
just
thinking
notice
those things.
Notice what you're noticing.
Notice those things.
Yeah. Notice what you're noticing.
I have to say, like, as regards to it was so interesting that she asked us about the podcast right before we got on.
Yeah,
I almost wish she had asked us during the interview because it really made us think again, why we do this,
Yeah.
why we want to do this, why we continue to do this. Like,
doesn't it make you
yes,
change your answer to that?
yes,
Like we still do it. We still know why we do it, but I
Yes.
think it's just taking it that one step further and like
Yes.
really recognizing and noticing. And
Yes.
it's just, I had so many more
Yes.
questions.
I know. Well,
Anyway, maybe we'll have her back.
maybe we will. But yeah, I mean, maybe she will, because I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that was, I mean, yeah.
Like, I really was listening. Like, I wasn't. Your rapt attention.
Yeah.
Rapt attention.
Yeah, I have a lot more questions.
Yeah, I don't think you asked. I think you asked 3 questions.
I think
that
I
you
did
wrote down.
too. But she really, I mean, first of all,
Yeah.
her origin story is.
I mean, just hearing that.
do you imagine?
But all of these kinds of stories, I think, boil down to there's a person that enters your life for whatever reason, and it changes the course of it. Like, I think about my dad.
Sliding doors.
What?
Sliding doors.
It is sliding
My
doors.
favorite
Like, I
movie.
think about. I always think about that, and I know you love that, and I love that, because it is about like no coincidences, which she actually said.
Yeah.
Things happen
Yeah.
because they're happening. It's not an accident. There's no accidents. And it's the time of this taping is right around the year anniversary of my dad passing, and I think I've been thinking about him a lot. But he had a teacher who plucked him off the street and put him in Bronx High School of Science, and it set him on a road that was his road. But if that person hadn't seen his potential,
Sure.
seen that thing in him,
Yep.
then who knows? Who knows? And so you just always think about that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that it also changes over time too. It's like
Yeah.
a person comes into your life. They may not be in your life forever, but they were
That's
there
right.
for a time and a purpose,
agree.
and then
I agree.
on to the next.
Yeah.
But
I always think that, I think that sometimes with you and I, how we became friends. Like, if Tanya hadn't said, come do this thing, and I would have had lunch with her, and you,
Right,
and
and
you would
yeah.
have gone home.
Yeah.
But she was busy. She's
Yep.
like, you guys walk home. And that changed the course of our lives.
yeah, sure did.
We hope you got as much out of that as we both did. And thanks for listening. I'm Lori Schulweiss.
And I'm Jen Giamo.
And this was Everybody Talks.
Talk to you next time.
Take care.
For more information about our podcast, to learn more about us, and to catch up on all of our episodes, go to our website at everybodytalkspodcast.com.
Follow us on Instagram at Shuli, at Jen Giamo, and at Everybody Talks. And if you want to watch today's episode, go to our YouTube channel at Everybody Talks Podcast.
Join the Everybody Talks community by checking out our Patreon page, where you can become an exclusive member of our wellness group and be a part of the conversation.
And don't forget, if you like what you've heard, give us a 5-star rating, write a review, and tell a friend. We're for everybody and everybody. The Everybody Talks podcast is co-created, executive produced, and hosted by us, Lori Schulweiss and Jen Giamo. Produced and edited by Station 16.
Our theme song music is written and performed by Jackie Ryle and Aaron Navisi, with additional support from our pups, Oliver, Milo, and Murray.
Talk to you next time.